Here we are. This is it, 200 acres. A lot of people are fearful to buy real estate. If I let my fear rule over my success or going where I want to go, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. Wouldn't be able to have bought this. All right, y'all, just bought a 200 acre development that we're gonna head and go check out today. If you guys haven't watched my content, I buy and sell real estate. I'm 24 here in Oklahoma City. And we've got residential, multifamily, commercial, and then now we're doing land development. So a little bit of everything going on. My videos are very, I would say, all over the place, but we talk about real estate. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Bought and sold upwards of 70 houses this year. Some of those we sold almost immediately. Some of those we've held. It's a tough year of real estate for sure, but this land here is pretty slick. This is my largest acquisition to date. I bought it with a business partner. We're 50-50. I paid $870,000, so almost $1 million for one acquisition. We've got another industrial building that we're buying that I'll do a video about as well, but this one's mainly going to be about, if you're out there, I get a lot of views, 500,000 a month, somewhere in there. It's a lot for me, at least. And I know not everybody's real estate investing, and so where I see a lot of people is like 3 different buckets. First bucket is too scared to start and will never start. Second bucket is they're doing like 1 to 3 deals a year. And then the third bucket is they're doing, more than that and scaling a portfolio. And so none of those are wrong. It really just depends at like what your situation looks like and what you're comfortable with. But I do talk to a lot of people that are W-2 employees or younger guys, younger gals that they're scared to get in. They're scared to get started, which is valid right now. The real estate market is not doing great in most areas, which doesn't mean that you can't buy a deal. It just means that you have to be very careful how you buy deals. A couple years back, you could literally throw a dart at the wall and buy anything and you'd make money on it. It's not the case anymore. The only people making money right now are operators, and good operators that know what they're doing and know how to run their numbers correctly, manage contractors correctly, buy deals correctly. Design them, there's a lot that goes into that. And so anyways, I just wanted to talk about that. And if you guys have watched my videos, these conversations go a little bit everywhere. It's just whatever I'm thinking, but I've been thinking on that a lot lately. And a lot of the fear, I think, comes from the unknown. And so there's lots of people out there that are investing or that are thinking about investing, and they're like, well, from what I can see online, you find a deal, you make sure it's a deal, you rehab the deal, and then you sell it. That's what most real estate investors are portraying. It's like, source the deal, rehab it, sell it. But there's all these little pieces in between that if you don't know, you don't know. And so that's where like people get stuck. They don't want to pull the trigger. They don't know how to pull the trigger. And if you're kind of in that position, there's a fine line between learning but then never taking action. And so I tell a lot of the people that I mentor is like, usually investors are in 1 to 2 buckets where they're gung-ho, they want to buy anything and everything, which you don't want to be on that side. Or the other bucket is you're too scared to ever pull the trigger and you just continue to learn and never do anything with it. And at that point, no offense, but why waste your time learning if you're not going to apply the knowledge, And so you need to find like a good middle ground of like, okay, real estate's not rocket science. Learn, get a mentor, hire a mentor, whatever it looks like, until you have a very good understanding of like, this is what the process looks like. And then from there, you go and pull the trigger. You know what a good deal looks like. You know how to rehab a good deal. You know how to find and work with contractors, etc. And so a lot of people look at me and I get some negative feedback. I've noticed that people are in 1 of 2 buckets that watch my channel. They're either in the bucket of like, you're doing awesome shit, or they're in a bucket of like, fuck you because I'm 40 and I've never pulled the trigger on anything. And no offense, but typically the negative feedback that I get is that second bucket, and I feel for those people because a lot of it just comes from jealousy. They're older than me. They're likely miserable with where they're at, and that sucks. I wouldn't want to be in that position either. And so anyways, you guys don't want to be in that position either. And so if I can do it, you guys can do it, anybody can do it. None of this is rocket science. If you guys know my story, my mom went to prison when I was 17. I didn't have a leg up. I didn't have somebody that was buying my first deal or even backing my first deal, because those are 2 different things. You can have somebody that funds your first deal, which gives you a lot of confidence, that knows what they're doing, or you can have somebody that backs your first deal. I didn't have either of that. I had people that I could bounce ideas off of, but I didn't have somebody that was giving me a leg up. So I just say that to say that if somebody's in a position that you're in, or if you look at a guy like me, and there's plenty of guys that are doing better than me, but if you look at me and you're like, well, he can do it because of, you're just making excuses, you know? And so I try not to do that. I know guys with trust funds, I know guys that, et cetera, et cetera. I try not to look at them and go, oh, well, that's not possible for me because he had X or he had Y. We live in the United States or Canada, whatever. We're free democracy. Like, get out there, make something happen, you know? That's what I love about the freedom that we have. Like, it's cool. We were leaving that closing and I'm sitting there like, this is what I do every day. I still think about that, you know? Sometimes it does become the norm. A lot of it's like, oh, gotta go buy another house or gotta go sell another house. But it is cool when you have that gratitude of like, damn, this is what I get to do. Something else, my last video I talked about buying your time back when you hit a certain point. And so for those guys in that second bucket, they're like, well, I do 1 to 3 deals a year and I'm not sure what to do. I'm at capacity. I maybe have a W-2 job. But when you get to that point, you've got to start substituting and buying your time back that doesn't make you money so you can go make more money, you know? And so if you're doing the transaction coordinator job, you know, or you're turning utilities on, that's stuff that's not making you money. You know, you need to hire that out. Of course, you need to be able to be in a position of making enough money, and sometimes you might have to make sacrifices. Me and my wife lived in an $80,000 house when we had $4 million in real estate, you know, and houses that were nicer than what we were living in. Now, we didn't live in a shitter, but it wasn't, I mean, it was 1,000 square feet. It wasn't anything fancy. And so a lot of that you guys don't see, and it's the same story regardless of who you're watching or who you're looking at, unless they're a fake guru, which they are out there. Caveat to my content is we're at the properties that I buy. And so it'd be hard to fake this shit. So we're about 20 minutes out. This deal here, believe it or not, was an MLS deal. I was looking for deals and this popped up, 200 acres, 870,000. Few benefits here. One of those include I get to hunt the land. I like being out in nature, so it's cool to be able to make money doing what I love, you know? And so I enjoy being at this property. Not that I don't enjoy being at single family homes or multifamily or commercial, but it just hits a little different when you're like, we're gonna take this and we're gonna entitle it, and we're gonna develop it. And entitlements that's where you rezone a property, or you plat it, or you get a survey done, you split tracks up, etc. Anyways, there's so many ways to make money in real estate, and I've done a little bit of all. Multifamily, commercial, single family, land deals now. I've bought land deals before, but this is like the largest land deal that I've ever bought. So that's what's exciting about this one. But when I look at the year, I've been reflecting. We're in November now. And so when I look at the year, I'm like, well, did I accomplish what I wanted to accomplish? And I did in some aspects, I didn't in other aspects. Like, for example, when I started the year, I wanted to diversify and start buying more diversified assets, in a sense of like, a lot of my assets have been D-class, little rougher areas, you know, real cheap houses, 50, 70 grand that aren't worth more than like 120, you know? And so when I looked at this year, I was like, I want to get out of that. The problem is when you go from like a D-class asset to like a C or a B, you give up a little bit more cash flow. And so we'll say, for example, some of my properties were on the rougher side of town, or maybe lower income, renting for $600-700 a month, but I bought them for 30 grand and put 20 into them. So, you know, all in 50,000. There's nothing wrong with that type of asset, but the problem is I didn't like having my eggs all in one basket. So I had a bunch of these little properties, you know, that were not super great on the tax benefits. They cash flowed well, but also they're a little bit of a headache. And so until you've got 20, 30 properties like that, you know, we're sitting after today 63, 64 units, somewhere in there. When you get a bunch of those, you notice that the tenants start churning out yearly because they're little 2-bed 1-bath or 1-bed 1-bath or little apartments, you know, like people don't want to live in that forever, at least not in Oklahoma. They want more space. You know, if you're in New York City, it's a different story, but in Oklahoma, they want a 3-bed 2-bath or even a 3-bed 1-bath. And so I started diversifying, buying properties, 3-bed 2-baths, properties with garages, brick homes, a little bit newer homes. When I say newer, I mean like 70s, 80s. And in doing so, I gained more tax benefits because I was buying nicer assets. I gained good equity position because they're worth more money, and I forced the appreciation on each of those. But I lost the cash flow. So I seller finance deals and I can gain that cash flow. The problem with those seller finance deals is I trap the equity, so I can't go trade out of that house. Like if I have a single family rental, as soon as the tenant's out, I can trade out of that property and sell it, and it's fairly liquid. If you seller finance a deal, you're telling them, hey, I'm gonna hold this note for 20 years or 15 years, which there's nothing wrong with that because you create a good equity position and good cash flow. But if you ever got yourself in a pickle or you wanted to trade out of that asset, it's a lot harder to, that it's not as liquid. And so I started offsetting the cash flow that I wasn't getting on the longer term, B, C class rentals with buying the seller finance notes or the properties and then seller financing them. So we did a couple of those. But then I also wanted to buy commercial because it's got good tax benefits. So then we bought a couple commercial buildings. We bought 12,000 square feet of retail space. We're buying 15,000 square feet of industrial space. This is where diversity, I think, is a very good thing. I actually just posted on Facebook about buying this development. And then I talked about how we've got retail, we've multifamily, industrial. And I got a comment from a pretty big investor actually in town. I'd say, yeah, bigger investor than me. And so he's got a couple hundred doors. They're all multifamily, I believe, and I could be wrong here, but he said, congratulations, lots of great asset classes, but you should niche down into one asset class, which I think there's pros and cons to that, but there's just more risk involved. What if multifamily, like right now, multifamily really across the United States has taken a pretty big hit. The value of multifamily is based off of interest rates and NOI, net operating income. And so interest rates went up and there's what's called cap rate expansion. And so multifamily trades off of cap rates. Cap rates have gone from mid sixes now to mid sevens, maybe even a little bit higher depending on what like if it's a B, C, or D class asset. And so for me, I like the diversity, knowing that I've got fairly liquid single family assets that I can sell at any time. I've got the commercial, I've got multifamily. That way, if one asset class takes a dip, I can either maneuver and buy more of that or buy less of that. And also, as a portfolio as a whole is doing okay because I have multiple different assets. Anyways, back to this land deal. First ever development, so I'm excited about that. We're gonna kind of play it by ear a little bit. I don't have fear whenever I'm buying deals because I trust myself. I trust my business partner. We looked at this deal in depth. We really ran the numbers hard, and so it's not a matter of if we will sell this deal, it's a matter of when we will sell this deal, at least in my head. That's how I feel about it. So of course you guys get to watch the journey, so we'll see how it goes. Might crash and burn, we'll see. But yeah, anyways, back to my goals. So I was able to do that. We diversified, we held more assets this year. My portfolio just crossed 8 million. I haven't updated it in about a month versus like cash position, what I've sold, what we've kept, updated equity positions on some properties that we finished remodeling. But we're coming up. I think I should be $10 million portfolio by March or April. It's probably what held in the portfolio. And so, obviously I get a lot of questions about this. It's not all cash. We've got debt. I've got leverage on most of it. So we're about 60%, right at 61% loan to value across the portfolio. So if I've got a $10 million portfolio, it means that I carry $6 million in debt, which means that the other $4 million's equity. My single family homes, so they net about 37, 38, or they gross, not net. So huge difference between gross and net. So a lot of these guys online, they'll talk about, well, my rentals make 40 grand a month. Mine do. They gross about 40,000 a month, but we've got principal, interest, taxes, insurance, maintenance, vacancy, capital expenditures, etc. that go into those rentals. So we net right around 10K a month on our single family. Multifamily and commercial, we're netting closer to 6,000-7,000 a month, and so we don't really pull any cash flow out right now. It all gets reinvested. But anyways, that's kind of where we're ending the year. I'm just happy. There's a lot of big syndicators. There's a lot of big investors that just didn't do so well this year. They're struggling pretty hard. I was not in that boat. We had the best year we've ever had. I bought the most real estate I've ever bought, and we did it in a market that has been considered pretty poor. So it goes to show that we operated our company correctly this year. And so anyways, I'm proud of that. You know, there's some areas that I think that I could have done a little bit better or delegated better, etc. But overall, it's been a good management year, you know, and so 2026 is going to be pretty cool. Anyways, we are about 10 minutes out from this property. We're going to pull up over here and then we'll kind of walk around, show you guys the deal and go from there. Here we are. This is it, 200 acres. It's nice rolling terrain, but nice and flat for good buildable sites, which is what we want. Oh, and one more thing. It's gonna be a little windy. I don't know where the mic cover wind thing is at, so I lost it. Bear with me, please. Anyways, we came out here one day when we were doing our due diligence, and there's 3 cows out here. And talked to one of the neighbors. They were like, yeah, we used to run cattle out here. Those 3 cows we could not round up. So we inherited them. So they're around here somewhere. I'll throw a drone video up on the screen. They came out the other day when I was in my truck getting my drone ready so I get some drone footage. And at some point, we'll have nice meat. We'll harvest them. I think we're gonna take them to my buddy Jim's. I got a storm shelter from one of our properties, big above ground, like 8x10. And so he's gonna take the cows. He's got 80 acres in a different part of the city. So 2 ponds out here. We're coming up on one of them. And where we're standing right now, we're actually going to be bringing a road in. So that's going to be part of the development process, is taking a road in here. We're going to bring electric in, and then everything's going to be on well and septic. So that's kind of the play with this. Not too much horizontal going on. Logan's got a little sticker. Are you okay? Logan's got a little sticker. All right, so here's one pond. The other pond we'll get on the way back. Golly, it's windy out here. I'm sorry if it's windy on camera, y'all, but this is it. You know, nothing too crazy here. We're gonna play around on it for a little bit until we get around to developing. We did most of our due diligence and platting and surveying when we were under contract. We had a little bit longer close, I think it was a little over 60 days. And so now we're gonna enjoy it for a bit. But funny enough, they've got a development that just went live literally a quarter mile from here. They're selling 1.25 acre lots for $33,000. We're gonna sell 3 acre lots for $36,000. So we're undercutting the competition. We bought this pretty deep. We've got margin, and so our goal is not to get greedy. We're gonna come in, and by the way, if you guys are in Oklahoma City, you're looking for land, we got a good deal on land. Anywhere from 2.5 acre lots up to 200 acres. You can buy it all if you wanted. And so I'll keep you guys posted as we go through this, but for now, just gonna kind of explore a little bit. Check this out. Yeah, look right here. These aren't today, but there are deer tracks everywhere on this place. Only before too long, before we get on something, I'm gonna donate the first deer I shoot this year, is the goal. Donate to somebody, a family in need here in the Oklahoma City metro. Maybe doesn't have any meat, but yeah, look at all this. Yeah, they're everywhere. Oh, dude, that's like from this morning up over there.
Yeah.
It's still saturated. Oh, yeah. I bet they're probably out here this morning, huh? We need to put one of the deer cams. We put one right up here. Be perfect. Yeah, baby. Anyways, I'm excited. This is what I enjoy. Here, let me show everybody on the map kind of what this property looks like. So, we're right here. This is the full 200, like that. So you see we've already got partial road. Here's our other pond right there. And then we got a nice creek that runs through the middle. And then this is flood zone here at the bottom. So anyways, this is our back 40. We'll be bringing a road to that, bringing electric in. Yeah, pretty nice little piece. And then you guys can see, here's what they consider Thunderbird, Dirty Bird for the locals. And then we've got Norman and then Oklahoma City. So that is the distance there from OKC, so you guys can see that. Let's go check that home site out over there. So this is the original home site right here. And you guys can see we got remnants. The plan is not to clean this up and sell it to someone who wants to. So there's no value in this for me personally, and like it's still pretty dilapidated, but somebody might see value in this. You know, we've already got partial cattle fencing up and whatnot. We've yet to see our 3 cows. So something to point out, I will point this out. Guthrie, Oklahoma, in certain parts where homes were built like back in the 1920s and 30s, you see a lot of this sandstone foundation right here. So I personally would not want to buy a property and hold it with a sandstone foundation, because what happens is it starts eroding away. You can see all this erosion up in here. I mean, you got to think it's 100 years old, so it's held up for a while, but it's not gonna last another 100. But I guess you could say the same about new home construction. Is it even gonna last another 100? Old house might be value for someone. Honestly, foundation's pretty straight, like, for what it is. Believe it or not, I believe this place could be brought back to life. It's just a matter of, like, would you want to bring it back to life? I don't, personally. We've got old termite damage here. So if we can't sell this lot, we'll just come in here and we'll bulldoze this down and throw it in some dumpsters. But hopefully we can just sell it as is. Like I said, probably not much value now that I've seen the inside. I haven't actually been in here. Now that I've seen the inside, probably not much value, but it's a cool old house for what it is. This out here is our flood zone piece. Really the only downside to this whole 200 acres, we've got about 20 that's in flood zone. But once again, if you're in Oklahoma City and you want some cheap land, we're gonna be selling that well below market just to dump it. So hit me up and I can get you guys some details on that. But yeah, so back to what I was talking about of just like, a lot of people are fearful to buy real estate. And if I let my fear rule over my success or going where I want to go, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. Wouldn't be able to have bought this. You know, I'm 24. You know, not that I haven't had people that have helped me throughout the years, but I didn't have a dad that did this, you know what I mean? And so my biggest advice for you guys out there is to not get analysis paralysis, but don't be too much of a motivated buyer, and make sure that you know what you're doing. We have a pretty good idea of what we're doing on this property. Never know 100%, especially when it's a new venture. This will be our first development, but we've got the resources, the money, and the time to be able to take it on, you know, and so we're not getting in over our heads on this. But I will keep you all posted because it's going to be an interesting one. And I enjoy being out in nature. So this is more fun than single family real estate, even commercial, multifamily. Of course, those have its benefits, but in terms of just enjoyment, I'm excited to come out here and see this property. But yeah, a lot of people are scared they're scared of failure, you know, and I think that that's the biggest piece. Like, in today's society, nobody wants to fail. The other problem is there's so much ego going around. My biggest recommendation, if you're watching me and you're like, how is he where he's at, or what's he been able to do? Not that I'm some crazy thing, there's plenty of people doing bigger shit, but drop the ego. Because I talk to people, run into people all the time where there's so much ego involved. Not saying that I don't have an ego, try my best to not. You know, when you guys comment and maybe you have a recommendation or something that I can do better, I take that and I run with it, you know, because I'm always trying to learn. And I think that that is a common fault in our society right now, especially just social media in general. Everybody wants to be the shit, especially younger dudes. You want to look cool, you want to be cool. You know what's cool though? Having a shitload of money in your bank account. Or being able to travel when you want to travel, you know? Not having a Lamborghini or Ferrari. No offense, I mean, that stuff's cool. I'm not saying that I don't want that stuff, but for me, the freedom to be able to come out here on a Monday afternoon and show you guys this is worth a lot more to me than a lot of these extrinsic things like a Lamborghini or Ferrari or a bigger house, which everybody wants a bigger, nicer house, me included. But it's not something that I need right now at this point in my life, you know. Comfortable with what we've got, and we reinvest the difference, and it's been able to afford this, you know, to be able to invest and do more shit. So anyways, I yapped for a while in the car, so probably gonna end this here. Those are my parting words for you guys. Get out there, make it happen. Make sure you know what you're doing though, and don't be a motivated buyer. Logan, what do you got?
Good luck, have fun.
Good luck, have fun. Hope that added value. See you guys. Hey, one more thing for the OGs that made it this far. They're my cows. So anyways, whenever I get around, or I guess those are Jim's cows, but we've agreed that I'll get half of one or a whole one. So whenever I get around to it, I'll give away some steaks, fresh steaks. Hopefully they're good. They look like healthy cows. But lastly, if you guys can, like, comment, subscribe, please. Makes a big difference. I'll catch you guys later.